The HOA accused my quiet, artistic daughter of vandalizing the neighborhood clubhouse walls with graffiti. She was heartbroken. Those were just sketches she drew while waiting for me after school. They didn't care. But when a detective spotted one particular drawing, everything changed. What they thought was childish nonsense turned out to be the biggest clue in a missing child case, and suddenly, the HOA wasn't trying to punish her. They were trying to cover their tracks. The accusation. We lived in a quiet, neatly manicured neighborhood, one of those places where lawns were mowed twice a week, mailboxes had to match, and heaven forbid you leave a bicycle in the driveway for too long. The HOA ruled everything. And while I found their rules strict, I never imagined they'd come after my 12-year-old daughter, Eliza. Eliza was quiet, bright, and unusually gifted at drawing. After school, while I wrapped up work from home, she'd often sit near the community clubhouse with her sketchbook. She loved capturing people, faces, movements, even shadows. Her teachers called her advanced for her age, and we were proud. Then one Thursday evening, I received an email from the HOA board with a subject line that made my stomach drop. Urgent. Vandalism investigation. Attached were blurry photos of the clubhouse walls, covered in charcoal sketches, figures, faces, some animals. I instantly recognized the style. My daughter's style. The email demanded a formal meeting and accused Eliza of defacing property. They called her delinquent, disruptive, and even hinted at possible juvenile charges. My blood boiled. At dinner, I asked Eliza gently. She looked at me, eyes wide. I didn't draw on the wall, Daddy. I taped paper to it because I liked the texture. I would never do that. You know I wouldn't. I believed her, 100%. She wasn't a liar and she respected rules almost too much, but that didn't matter to the HOA. At the meeting the next day, 5 stern board members sat across from us like a tribunal. They had no proof, just assumptions and bias. She's the only child often seen near the clubhouse, Mrs. Detmer, the HOA president, said sharply, and these sketches resemble those found on her Instagram art page. She didn't deface anything, I replied firmly. She uses removable tape and sketch paper. Show me one wall with actual markings. They couldn't. But they refused to apologize. They issued a warning, banned Eliza from community areas for 2 weeks, and made veiled threats about involving the police if artwork appeared again. Eliza cried that night. She locked herself in a room and didn't touch her sketchbook for days. Her passion, her innocence, was stripped away by a board of people too rigid to understand creativity. Then, everything changed. 3 days later, we received a knock at our door. A local detective, tall and serious, introduced himself as Detective Lyons. "Mr. Carter, I was told your daughter is an artist," he said gently. "May I see some of her work?" Confused, I brought out her sketchbook. He flipped through until he landed on a page with a rough drawing of a man's face, a scruffy beard, baseball cap, dark hoodie. Eliza had drawn it weeks ago. "Where did she see this man?" he asked urgently. Eliza came out of her room slowly, watching the officer with wide eyes. "He was always walking near the clubhouse. He made me nervous. He had a dog with a limp and always stared at the swings." The detective looked up sharply. "That dog, was it a brown and white pit bull?" Eliza nodded. The detective's hand shook slightly as he reached for his phone and showed her a photo. "Was this the man?" "Yes," she whispered. That was the turning point. The man she sketched was a person of interest in the disappearance of an 8-year-old girl from a neighboring town 2 weeks before. He'd been spotted near several playgrounds, and the description Eliza gave, down to the limping dog, matched perfectly. Eliza's sketch became key evidence. By evening, officers were canvassing the area again. With Eliza's help, they tracked down surveillance footage and found the man's car parked nearby on multiple occasions. Suddenly, the same HOA who labeled her a vandal was now claiming they always supported her creativity and wanted to issue a public apology. I wasn't having it. "Save your statements," I told them. "You didn't just accuse my daughter. You tried to crush her spirit. You owe her more than words. But it wasn't about revenge for us. It was about truth. And for Eliza, who had quietly witnessed and recorded things most adults missed, it was about justice. The man was arrested within 48 hours. He had the missing girl's bracelet in his glove compartment. Eliza, once accused, was now being interviewed by the local news. But that was only the beginning. The reckoning. News of Eliza's sketch identifying a potential child abductor spread faster than wildfire. By the following week, her face was on the local news and headlines read things like, 12-year-old artist helps crack missing child case. Sketchbook saves lives. Neighbors who once whispered or crossed the street when they saw us now waved enthusiastically or dropped by with baked goods. But not everyone had such warm intentions, especially not the HOA. I received a thinly veiled email from the board stating they regret any misunderstanding regarding previous enforcement actions and wanted to celebrate Eliza's contribution with a community event. The same people who accused her of vandalism now wanted to use her image for PR. I was livid. They didn't care about Eliza. They cared about optics. The same board president, Mrs. Detmer, who called my daughter a delinquent, stood in front of neighbors and press with a fake toothy grin at the next community gathering. We are proud to say that our very own resident helped authorities make a major breakthrough, she gushed. Let's hear it for Eliza Carter, a young hero in our midst. The crowd clapped. Eliza clutched my hand tightly, her face pale. She wasn't comfortable with this kind of attention, especially not from the people who shamed her just days ago. Afterward, HOA board members approached me in private. We'd like to hang some of Eliza's artwork inside the clubhouse, said Mr. Klein, the vice president, as a tribute. I stared at him. You mean the same clubhouse you accused her of vandalizing? He blinked. Well, yes, but… No, I cut him off. You don't get to use her talent to fix your reputation. That's when I decided we wouldn't just move on quietly. I contacted a civil rights attorney. You absolutely have a case, she said, after reviewing the HOA emails and timeline, defamation of character, emotional distress, discrimination based on age, and a possible violation of your daughter's First Amendment rights under community free use zones. The lawsuit was filed within a week. Suddenly, the HOA changed its tune entirely. Now they were accusing me of stirring unnecessary drama. One board member even implied we were using the incident to gain media attention. But they underestimated how prepared I was. I had every message, every email, every meeting note. More importantly, I had the public on my side. Eliza's story had gained traction online. Parents across the country rallied behind her. A few famous illustrators even donated art supplies and offered mentorship. A popular news anchor even tweeted, "A child's sketch led to an arrest, but the adults around her saw a crime. Shameful. #Justice for Eliza." It became too big to ignore. We settled the case out of court for a significant sum. The terms were confidential, but let's just say Eliza's college was now paid for in full. The HOA also had to issue a formal apology, publicly. At the next community meeting, Mrs. Detmer stood behind the podium, her voice shaking as she read, "We deeply regret our actions and the undue harm caused to Eliza Carter and her family. We acknowledge our mistake and apologize unreservedly." Eliza didn't attend. She was at a local art school's open studio, painting. She'd found her peace in the colors and strokes, not in their empty apologies. But I had one last move left. I ran for HOA president. Not for power, for change. People were tired of the board's arrogance, of rules being used as weapons. With the support of many neighbors, especially parents, I won in a landslide. First order of business? I dissolved the current enforcement committee and rewrote several policies with actual human empathy. The second, I established a community art wall, an actual designated space where kids and adults could showcase their creativity. No more threats, no more censorship. And at the top of that wall, framed behind protective glass, was the sketch Eliza drew, the one that helped find a missing child. It was a symbol now, of courage, of talent, and of a little girl who turned suspicion into justice.